Excellent. We are live, John, and we're here to talk about visual thinking.
Awesome. Yeah, I find that making visual documentation a part of any meeting typically makes it more interesting, at least for the facilitator, but for sure afterwards, you have something to share about what was talked about, what was created during the meeting, and that can be intimidating if you're not a graphic facilitator by trade. So I think our template that we've worked on with Mural is important. But I guess the question I have for you is, um, why is it important to think visually at a higher level? And then I'm going to be taking notes visually for us as we talk about it.
Why is it important to think visually at a high level? Well, at the end of the day, um, I think it affords us an ability to connect on a level that we wouldn't connect otherwise. We can extract, meaning that's a bit deeper than we would have um, just um, just on the surface understanding that we might have. We often talk about in workshops the need uh, to to build more alignment, and this alignment is created due to clarity and by disambiguating. And visuals can do a really great job of disambiguating. Um, they can also do a really amazing job um, of adding optionality, expanding um, the kind of potential space, the thinking um, that we might bring to the table. So, for instance, if I bring a metaphor or a let's say something that's symbolic that can derive deeper meaning, that can inspire others to think of things that they wouldn't have thought of otherwise, because they can make these lateral connections that are sometimes evasive, that if we were just depending on words alone, they might escape us.
Nice. So also, I know we think a lot about different workshops that help people visually think,
Mm-hmm.
and I know design sprints is one of them. And can you talk to me about that intersection between visual thinking and design sprints, and why it's so important in the process, and why that process has perhaps taken off because it encouraged so much visual thinking?
Yeah, I think if we just look at the classic design sprint, there's a few moments that are very much rooted in visual thinking, and then we can talk a little bit about remote design sprints and how that's like opened up a whole new layer of visual thinking that wasn't even in the original design. But let's first unpack the kind of tried and true old original Real McCoy design sprint, as Jake defined it in the book. And the prototype that we built on Thursday is absolutely a form of visual thinking, and we're kind of putting our thoughts together into this prototype. So the culmination of the design sprint, where we take this prototype and we put it in front of users and we let it steer the insights that we gather from the user. I think these visuals, this future state that we've simulated, is basically tickling parts of their brain. It's allowing them to imagine a future that we can project together, rather than me just using words to explain what I'm thinking and what the possibilities could be. Instead, I'm actually showing you a simulation of what this could be, and you can react to it. And I think that is really um, that's visual thinking at its core. So then you've got visual thinking activities along the way that get us to that prototype that we're gonna kind of use as a tool to extract understanding about our the humans that are going to use this and interact with the software. And if we look at how we construct the prototype, so when we're creating the storyboard, that's a form of visual thinking. You know, we're kind of on the whiteboard or in Mural, and we're creating an arc of the story together, and it's unfolding, and you know, it provides clarity around how this prototype can come together. So we can get past a bunch of unknowns, and we can disambiguate you know, what we plan to build, and that's really powerful. So when we do build the prototype on Thursday, that's a lot of you know, a lot of things that are unknown that are kind of specified, so we can lean on that that understanding. Also, if you look at like How Might We's, you look at Note and Vote, these are all forms of you know, visual thinking, because we are putting our thoughts in front of folks in a way that that we visualize the outputs. And you know, even though they're in text and not just purely in images, I think there's still value in people being able to see without having to hear someone's reaction to someone else's thoughts. Because you can, only one person can talk at a time if you're having one conversation. But what if you know, this visual note taking is happening in parallel? There's a lot of nuance and a lot of thoughts that can be recorded and made available for others to react to and understand, and the team can move forward more quickly, being able to see those multiple lines of thought starting to become apparent. And so I think we can scan for patterns more easily than we can. It's also really easy to to miss. If someone says something and you're distracted by something else, it's really easy to miss it. But if you're continuously scanning a visual space, a board, even if it's written words, there's a huge opportunity to notice patterns and things you didn't see before. Also, as we start to cluster those stickies, like we do with How Might We, is really powerful. When we create the heat map of putting the How Might We's onto our map, that is a visual indicator. That is a very very visual indicator of what the most critical things the team are. So we're using visuals, we're using geographic location to surface up understanding and meaning, so that we don't have to conceptually point out like this is the thing that's important. It's these subtle like visual and I would say spatial cues that help those epiphanies emerge, which is really powerful. And the map that the How Might We's go onto, that's visual thinking. We're visualizing the problem space. I think that you know, it's the classic design sprint issue is like, do we map the current state or the future state? But regardless, is very much a visual thinking activity where we're visualizing our thoughts so that we can get to some more clarity or get to some understanding that may have been evasive when we're just using language and words.
That's awesome. So as you can see, as you know, as you're talking, I'm literally visually thinking about what you're saying, and it's been a helpful way for me to listen. But as I'm using this simple template we put together, you know, I looked at some themes you were talking about. You talked about design sprints. You talked about deeper meaning, alignment, creativity. And I was just using the simple visual tools here inside of Mural, the icons, the image search, just looking for images that kind of match up with what you're saying. And of course, we could sit here and organize these, but maybe you can ask me a question and you add to these. You give it a go. So regarding this topic, you have a question for me so that we can show people how to use these in their meetings?
Yeah, I guess, you know, what opportunities for visual thinking do you think that are out there that people just aren't quite tapping into yet?
Yeah, glad you asked that, Douglas. I think that one of my favorite ways, this is in the design sprint process. You and I created the Remix Anything process. I'm just going to say the word remix. So remixing is probably the best way because everyone is a curator, whether they know it or not. They might not have that in their job description, but they have apps they love to use. They have songs, they have stories that they are deeply connected to. These existing things that you appreciate in the world are worth bringing forward whenever you're imagining something new. Like, sure, you want to make something new, but don't reinvent everything. Like, there's some things from other industries, and I just think it's really important to remix things you already appreciate. So one of my main methods for a team to start thinking visually is tell them to take a few minutes and, hey, go off and curate an image, some kind of visual. I like to recommend Google Images, and just find a screenshot of an app you really love. Bring in the book cover of a story that you think is really relevant. And so nice. See, I like how you had the little remix with the disc there. And yeah, like, don't challenge anyone. Really, all they're being is a curator. They don't even have to be a creator. They're just curating something someone else created and then using that in a really awesome way. And I think that that's one of the ways that I get people to realize they're more creative than they think. So that's one. The second one is I like the activity of challenging someone to explain it to a child. So that prompt may be a new theme for us here, which is, instead, we sometimes take ourselves too seriously as adults. And so if you tell someone, all right, how would you draw that out for a 10-year-old? How would you explain that to a 10-year-old? Like, that's a very approachable way to saying, hey, could you simplify that? Could you make that more essential? And so that's another way that if someone obviously is having some juices turn in their creative mind, I'll challenge them through the lens of making something really simple. So yeah, remixing is one. And then the other is explaining it to the youth, to children. Because, by the way, if you try to have a complex piece of software or an app or a service you're working on, probably your greatest due diligence is to pitch it to the youth. They will give you not only amazing real-time feedback. I actually think if kids knew how to deploy funds, they would be the ultimate venture capitalists, because they ask just really good questions and they'll kind of tell you if something's got legs or not, if it's got potential. So that's one. Those are two for Douglas, for me, that are really, really awesome at getting people to quickly express themselves. Right. I think another theme here is just go low fidelity. Like, high fidelity takes time. It just does. I mean, anyone who's made anything that's really spectacular, it just takes revisions, and that can be intimidating. And so if you focus just on low fidelity, like you'd mentioned in the design sprint, I think people start creating much quickly. Just like this template here, right? It doesn't require you to be a mural expert. It doesn't require you to be a graphic designer. If you can type in a search bar and look for icons and images, it's really easy. And so fidelity is a massive variable to improve. Yeah. Do those make sense? And you've been a great note taker, taking visually.
Yeah, this makes a lot of sense. Although the one shocking discovery I had is sometimes when you pull images from Google Images, the thing you see in the search results is not the thing that appears when you drag it into Mural. So this Anchorman Giphy was.
Well,
I'm
gonna remix it to say, one powerful thing about quick visual thinking is you may end up like Anchorman, because when you actually put together your prototype and you write your visual, you realize like, let's say you took 10 minutes to make it, you realize like, this isn't that good. Well, that's important to have that realization before committing to it, and maybe go back to the drawing board, as they say, and
Yes,
make a new
absolutely.
concept. Yeah.
And one thing that was kind of bubbling out around this, thinking about fidelity and was just this notion of encouraging people to contribute, and how can we get everyone engaged.
Yeah. Well, this is only 2 of us now. If you imagine that there was 5 of us, 4 of us on this call, one person's talking, there could be more than one person contributing into these little placemats here. So that could be a really great way to encourage listening, is you're kind of listening and curating. And so I think this template, when you're having a meeting of any kind or you're talking about a topic, is really great to use, because also you can share it after the fact, right? You can share this out and say, hey, take a look at the topics or themes at our meeting, and you got something nice to look at, not just another memo, bullet points.
Yeah, absolutely. And Tom here in the comments mentioned what happens when someone contributes something that's completely outside of the business context, and it doesn't even have to be outside of the business context. It could be just something that is completely irrelevant from what we're talking about. Like, and in a way, this Anchorman thing could even fall into that territory. Although we might better remix that to something that's helpful. But I think those moments are gold, are total gold. And I might actually pull an icon in here and say, absolutely, like, I love this. I love that this happened, because I don't even know why that icon's not showing up, but
it's just really tiny, I think.
Yeah. There we are. Boom.
Oh, now it's behind the GIF.
Yeah, I think it's like it got pulled in behind. That's interesting. Send it back. All right. Oh, that wasn't what I wanted. Okay. But anyway, my point is that these ideas, these things that seem to be off, can be really valuable, because they can expose lack of alignment, and they can expose when there's a misunderstanding on the team, and that can be really, really huge, because if we can surface those up earlier, then we're going to be more successful in the long run, because we can repair those things.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, and aside from it being a alignment awareness mechanism, it could also just surely may have something that's outside of the context, but maybe there is something within it that is really valuable. So the holistic idea may not be sound or feasible, Tom, but a feature or a little element of it, or just the way they framed it, could be interesting and inspiring to others. And I think as long as people are contributing, as facilitators, that's all we can ask for. You can sift through things later and make sense and filter and make decisions on feasibility and if it's actually in context or not. But I just think that I know if I could go back and redo my experience in education, hindsight's 2020, it would be that I wish my teachers would have just encouraged expression more, because the more I've worked professionally, I've realized those that don't have that resistance, they just express. Of course, they're going to have some things that don't stick. I mean, I have bad ideas daily, but my muscles getting trained in expressing, which is, I think, what we want from those we work with. At least that's how I see it.
Nice. Well, I think that takes us to time, John. It's been a pleasure jamming with you today, and we'll be on again sometime soon, probably next week.
Awesome. Thanks, Douglas.